You are watching the World Athletics Podcast with 400-meter hurdles world champion Dalilah Muhammad. She recounts her phenomenal season where she took world championship gold in Doha, and she starts the story off from where she broke the world record at the US Nationals. You were kind of, when you crossed the finish line, a lot of people said, like, why isn't she going crazy? But you were just like, that's just me.
I think that's just really what it is. Like, that is just me. And I think for me also, I've been working kind of so hard for it at practice, and I kind of been hitting it at practice over and over again. So continuously kind of hitting those times at practice. It was kind of just, for me, that race was just about like putting it all together and doing it on a stand and doing it in a race where it mattered, where there is an official time. So obviously I was extremely happy, but I think that's just me. Like, I just internalized my emotions.
You know, I read a really interesting article, and it kind of has reminded me of this, where it's this thing called the arrival fallacy. I don't know if you've heard of it, where basically, I wrote it down just so I can word it properly, but
Please.
Arriving rarely makes you as happy as you expect. By the time you've arrived, you expect to reach it, so it's been incorporated into your happiness, so you quickly become adjusted to the new state of affairs. Do you think that you kind of, obviously you were training and you felt like you kind of knew it was going to happen, it was like about time?
I think that is a good way of putting it. Obviously you want it, but when you're working towards something and it's such a definite goal of what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to, it's not like I had no idea what time was possible. I think I had a realistic idea of what time was possible. So I think there is not, you don't want to say expectation. You don't say, I expect to break the world record, but there is somewhat of an expectation that probably limits your emotion.
Yeah, I think, because that's the thing, like you obviously don't want to come off as like braggy, like obviously I expected to run the world record, but if you're being realistic and you're analysing, you and your coach know what's going on. So, and I thought it was quite interesting, your coach kind of said after you'd run it the first time, he was like, well, she was a bit slow getting out the blocks, she kind of went into hurdle late, not the right way, and it wasn't, because most people would be like filled with jubilation or whatever, but you guys you had a measured reaction, which, yeah.
I think, well, like you said, you don't want to feel braggy. And I think right before that race, my coach said to me, he's like, I don't see how you can absolutely not break this record. And I think, looking back, I just took it in the moment. I just took that for truth, but in all reality, he could have just been saying that as a way to motivate me, to make me feel like I couldn't possibly mess up. And I think that's probably what he was trying to do. But in that moment, I just took that as truth. Like, if he's saying that, then it must be true. And so just kind of looking back, he kind of talks about things that I kind of did wrong in the race. But even that, to me, I think was just, you have to still find ways to improve in the 400-meter hurdles. After you break a world record, what's left? What else is there to do? I think there's that kind of idea that you've kind of done it all. But so for us, it's like, okay, well, how do we possibly improve? And I think for him, speaking to reporters and speaking out was just his way of saying that to me, that there's still more you can do.
Completely. I completely understand where you're coming from. When you do, it's the thing with the arrival fallacy, when you arrive somewhere and you do it, and it's like, well, what's next then? Like, where do I go from here? And I do think that, obviously you took it that step further going to Doha, but again, it was more of a matter of time type thing. Obviously, you went into, I think you did Zurich, was probably the next biggest race, the Diamond League final. And I saw in the New York Times, there was an interesting quote from you about about that race, and you said you just didn't feel anything. You weren't nervous, you weren't anxious, you just didn't feel anything.
That's really completely true. I remember telling my coach, I always tell him exactly how I feel, because I think it matters. And I think as a coach athlete relationship, you kind of want to just be as open as you possibly can. And in that moment, I'm like, well, what are you going to do for me? Because are you going to help me, give me some motivational words? And he just kind of just nodded his head like, okay, and that was, sorry. And that was literally it. And I guess he understood how I felt, and we kind of knew that race was going to go as it was going to go, and there really wasn't much we can do. After you coming off such a high, there's bound to be a low, and as much as we're trying to fight that low, it's just kind of almost inevitable, and we just kind of we could have pulled out, but I know I didn't want to do that, and so yeah, I think it was just kind of kind of feeling like just empty.
That's really interesting in comparison to most athletes really hype themselves up going into a race, and their coach is like, you're going to go there and you're going to smash it, X, Y, Z. Whereas you and your coach taking this measured approach is so, I don't know, you don't really hear it that often in the sport.
Well, I always tell him, I'm like, do not lie to me. And not that I think he would, but I'm like, I want to know the truth. If it sucked, like, tell me it sucked. If it was great, tell me it was great. Like, don't ever. And that's what I like literally tell him at practice. I think that's just my personality. And I think that's almost his personality too, where it's just like, we want to know I guess this idea that you can't be perfect, but we're both trying to be perfect. And if you're not trying to be perfect, but trying to have a perfect race. And if you're trying to have a perfect race, you want to know every little thing that could be better. So I think that's just kind of our personalities, and that's kind of why it kind of comes across as so measured, and maybe it is.
But that's not a bad thing at all. Clearly it's working, obviously. I think I've never really heard of an athlete, so you didn't have anything injury-wise wrong with your body going into Zurich? It was just mentally you weren't there?
Yeah, it was just mentally. I think, physically, we did go up in our training, kind of slowed me down again, because we had, after Des Moines, after running so fast, we still had quite ways to go until the Doha final, and I think it was about 2 months. So that's a long period of time to just stay at such a high level. So we did go back up in training, but no, I wasn't injured at all. I think I was just slightly, drained mentally, and I think that's just a combination of those two things.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And how did you, when obviously Sydney ended up winning the Diamond League, did that almost take the pressure off you?
I guess I've never looked at it. No, I just never looked at it that way. I remember seeing her face when she crossed the line, and she seemed a little bit, well, obviously she was very happy, and I don't want to use the word shocked, because, she's definitely knows she's capable of winning the race, but I do remember seeing her face and just genuinely feeling joy for her as well. Like, to kind of have done that as your first time on the scene is quite an accomplishment. So yeah, I do remember just kind of feeling that way, and it was her moment, and letting her kind of have her moment, and it wasn't about me at all, and I didn't even think about myself in that moment.
That's really nice.
Oh, thank you.
Are you guys close at all?
I wouldn't say we're close. We definitely are competitors, friendly competitors, and I think, with time we could definitely build a stronger relationship, but I'd also just think if we haven't really been around each other quite as much as me and other athletes.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, obviously you are the two, fiercest rivals in the event currently. There is obviously other women who are running great times, but you two are kind of that next level above, so it kind of makes sense that you wouldn't be like best friends, I guess. Going into Doha, did you say, obviously you kind of Zurich was a bit of a low point. Did your mood kind of pick up? Did you kind of, going into it, did it kind of flip around again?
I definitely think it was all in timing, and I definitely at that moment wanted to kind of just refocus. I kind of knew after our championships in Des Moines that I kind of had to refocus, but Zurich was all about really refocusing. We went to Amsterdam. We spent some time in Amsterdam. I did something with Nike, and we kind of just had a different atmosphere for training. That definitely helps. Getting out the hot sun definitely helped.
Europe can do that for you.
And I really welcomed it. I loved kind of just being out there. I'm like, yeah, it's cold, but it's almost better than being in 100-degree weather right now. And so that was nice. And it just was a good kind of just happy moment. It was just me, my coach, and my training partner, Jonna Woodruff. She also runs the 400 hurdles. So it was nice.
Nice. Okay. And then when did you arrive in Doha?
I arrived to Doha, I want to say quite early. I don't remember exactly. Maybe like 2 weeks or a week and a half early.
And moving in as the event drew closer, where was your headspace? Is it like, I'm winning this, or?
I definitely wanted to win. I don't think my headspace was that. I think actually going into it, I was just you kind of as an athlete, you have those moments when you're going to do something phenomenal. And just because you feel good, your body is so in tune, your nervous system is firing. And for me, it wasn't that in Doha, and I just was kind of waiting for that moment. I'm like, okay, is the system going to turn on? And me kind of just taking each round as it came and just listening to my coach and doing kind of exactly what he kind of said to do.
Mm-hmm. And did the fire ever come?
It did. It's probably completely mental, but I do remember in the final rounds, I told my training partner, Jonna, I just joked with her. I'm like, oh, I'm on tonight. And and because she knew what I was talking about. So obviously it was just like, something casual between the two of us. But I definitely do feel that I felt, myself almost, or just that what you want to feel when you're going into a big race, I should say.
Yeah, definitely. It must be a really empowering feeling. Were you ready to destroy?
I just was focused. I think, it's about destroying. It's just like that mental where you can get into that zone where everything else becomes quiet. Like you're just so in your head almost that your inner world, but it's like you and everything else is just silent around you. And I kind of get into that zone when I have to compete. And I think you want to be in that, and it's kind of hard to get in there. It has to happen naturally.
Yeah, definitely. Were you in the call room and that kind of thing? Do you listen to music to block people out, or?
I don't. So I'm just really in my head. I had an interview earlier when they kind of asked me about the music I listen to, and truly I don't listen to music before I run. You're feeling nervous, and I think we kind of use music to kind of block that out. But I kind of like living in it and just kind of experiencing what it feels like to kind of just be in that kind of zone, and I think it just kind of helps you to compete.
Yeah, well, clearly immersing yourself in the whole thing works well for you. Obviously, you did win in a world record time, and heading down the home straight, obviously you and Sydney were very, very close. Could you feel her?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely knew she'd be coming the whole race. We were kind of, based on the lane draw, I was in 6. I believe she was in 4. So we kind of have that one little gap between us. And I definitely was conscious that she'd be there. So even if I had felt her or not, I was conscious of her being there.
And did you think the world record would go down again?
I definitely thought it was possible. I will say that. I thought it was possible. I knew, Sydney would be close.
Yeah.
And with her being close, we were definitely going to push each other. So how fast, I don't know. But I definitely thought, world record is quite possible to happen tonight.
And when you did cross the finish line, world record is kind of what every athlete dreams of. What were you actually thinking?
I think I was just thinking if I won or not, and I really, truly didn't know. Sydney is actually the one that told me. She was like, you got it. Because she could tell that I was kind of looking at the board, looking back and forth. You don't want to celebrate too early. You're well, who actually won the race? And so she was the one that let me know that I was the one that won the race. And I was, obviously the record was something that I would love, but it wasn't, what I truly wanted at that moment. At that moment, I just really wanted to come home with the World Championship title.
Thank you for watching the World Athletics Podcast. To listen to the full episode, click the link down below.